The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Friday, April 20th, Saturday, April 21st, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. We made it to the weekend. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Caribou region on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and if you're listening in on the Fringe FM, hello, how are you? Good to have you with us tonight. Remember, you can always tune in 24/7 to thefringe.fm. We're on live Periscope TV every Monday through Friday night. Hello, everyone joining us from Periscope tonight. And if you're looking for our archives, go to our YouTube channel. Do old Davey a favor. Hit that subscribe button. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. On our website, we got a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on our news section, The Encounter Online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. It's 4:20. Who lit it up today? Who's joining us after a big session of hippie lettuce? Fill me in. Old Davey doesn't do it, but he sure likes the smell. It's been a good day. I hope you've had a wonderful day as well, preparing for the weekend as we wrap up another week with some ghostly talk with paranormal author Rob Gutro. Rob, a psychic medium and paranormal investigator, recently took a trip to the United Kingdom to experience some very old hauntings and old spirits. Out of that amazing experience, Rob decided to write a book about it all and how it affected him. In his book, you will read, and you can get it on Amazon, by the way, and I highly suggest you do with any of Rob's books. In his experiences, he took 2 separate trips to the UK. England's rich history and many epic battles have caused an overabundance of residual emotional energy. No kidding. No kidding. I could just imagine what that feels like. Everywhere he traveled, he had a paranormal experience. He explored royal palaces and spent the night in haunted castles. This is getting good for a Friday night, people. Very good. Rob Gutro. It's been a couple years since I had you on Spaced Out Radio, but my friend, I'm sure glad we're doing it again. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Dave. Good to be back.
It's very good to have you back, my friend. You know, I've been asking everybody, and I'm starting to show off this way, because I'm asking everybody as we head into this weekend. You know, a week tonight we found out the terrible news that the legend Art Bell passed away. You know, everybody was a fan of Art. He was paranormal radio. Do you have any experiences in listening to Art that just kind of freaked you out?
I don't have anything that freaked me out per se, but I used to listen to him all the time, especially when I worked shift at the Weather Channel at night. So it was pretty awesome. He's going to be missed.
He really is going to be missed, because he's one of those guys that, I mean, as we've said throughout the week here, he's a pioneer. And there's not a lot of people, Rob. You have a media background a little bit, and I have a media background. And you got to admit, being a pioneer in something that is an entire industry, which is what the paranormal has turned out to be, it's pretty amazing the power that his show on Coast to Coast had, isn't it?
It is. I will say that he did make me paranoid sometimes. I would be looking up at the sky at like 2 a.m. when I was driving to work to see if there was anything floating by that shouldn't have been. So.
I think we all took enough time to look up into the stars to see where the aliens were flying around, any black triangles, or going into any house and wondering if there were ghosts that were staring down at us. You know, he had that power. He had that amazement to do that. How hard is that, Rob, to do that in today's media forum? Have we seen the last of that type of pioneer, do you think?
I don't know. I think there's always somebody to step in and create a niche. I like to think of you that way.
Oh, you are way too kind. Way too kind. You know,
am I buttering you up well enough?
No. You know what? It's tough, because, like I said to the audience, you know, last night, the biggest thing that we have is, you know, mountaineers always want to get to the top of Mount Everest. Art created Mount Everest, in my opinion. He created it, and he sat on top. And, you know, when you have the best guy who not only started the genre, but had that voice and that professionalism to really make this Mount Everest of the paranormal, and now that he has vacated the top of the mountain, we can all try to get there, but I don't know if there is anyone out there right now who has that ability. I sure know that I don't. I know there's a lot of quality hosts out there who are going to get close, but I don't think there's going to be anybody to sit on top of the mountain to have 12 to 14 million people listening to him every night. I just don't see it out there right now in the current state of this field.
Well, I think it takes time, certainly, to build up the trust of the listeners and expand your audience. And he really inspired a lot of people around the world. And he really entertained a lot of people, too, and made a lot of people think about what's out there.
Do you think, then, that he was someone who could, you know, be a catalyst for bringing a lot of this to the public's attention? I mean, we all have talked about UFOs. We have all talked about, ghost stories around campfires or Bigfoot or wherever it may be. But, it's something that, when we look at it, Rob, we look at him, maybe we're holding art on a giant pedestal, maybe that's what it is, but you do have to think that without art, what would be the status of the field of the paranormal, from these radio shows to people like you writing books? Because really, it just seems like every paranormal road ended up starting with him. You know what I'm saying? Even though it didn't, people have been investigating paranormal for centuries.
True. Since the Fox sisters back around the turn of the century made big strides in that, but certainly radio had become the medium, no pun intended, that really brought a lot of awareness to the public around the country and around the world. And radio also lends itself to the imagination. So. It's different when you're watching television and you have visuals in front of you, but with radio, and he was a master of that. He really allowed you to visualize what he was talking about. Very effective.
That's the toughest part in radio, my friend, is painting that picture so the audience can see it. I mean, in a way, you go through that as well, being a writer and an author. You have to paint the picture through your words so people are seeing what you're explaining, that they're having a little bit of a movie playing in their head as they're reading your words. That's a tough thing to do, my friend.
It is, and I think the trick of that is becoming your own editor. Because whenever you write something, you have to read it again. You have to go back to it and reread it like you didn't write it. And you have to be able to understand it. So it's all about visualizing, absolutely.
When you are painting a picture that way, what are you hoping to get from your audience?
Just genuine interest, being able to put themselves into my shoes, and for instance, in the current book, to be able to visualize walking through a castle, and looking at the surroundings. Putting themselves in a different place. And I think that's the beauty of all books, really, is escapism. But you do really have to visualize the environment in which you're reading in order to be able to do that. And I think that's what makes a successful book, and hopefully I come somewhere near that.
Don't we all hope, man? Don't we all hope? We do it here every night, trying to make sure that we can try and figure something out to do it right, because that's what it comes down to, is trying to do it right all the time. Rob, let's learn a little bit about you for our audience who has a love for the paranormal but may not have heard about your great work as of yet. How did you get started in this field?
Well, Dave, it's been a long time. Actually, several decades. And truth to tell, it started when I was a teenager. And, most kids actually can see ghosts or spirits, and that's because our logical minds are not really developed, and we are not taught to explain things away. So basically what happened was I was 13 years old. My grandfather appeared to me in full color 6 months after he died. Well, as it turns out, it was the anniversary of his birthday, which is when spirits usually appear, birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. And of course, it freaked me out. But when my parents came home, I found out my mother had the ability as well. She just didn't tell me. And over time, that nurtured. And it developed. And I actually didn't mind seeing or hearing or talking to dead people. And I always joke nowadays, some days I'd rather talk to dead people. So they have a lot to say. Very interesting. So I've taken a couple of steps further. When my dad passed in 2008, when I lost a dog very, very close to me in 2005, these now spirits on the other side have really come forth with a lot of messages and encouraged me to use my gift to help others, to comfort others, so that they don't need to pay a medium, for instance. You can learn how to look for signs by reading the books that I've written. They've inspired me to write these books. So I also work with Inspired Ghost Tracking in Maryland. I'm one of the mediums on staff there, and we do paranormal investigations in private homes. And we help people with their paranormal problems crossing earthbound ghosts over. One of the benchmarks of my career, if you will, and it's part-time, full-time, as you mentioned, I'm a scientist, I'm a meteorologist, so I just use my gift part-time to help people. In my first book, I wanted to make a distinction with the paranormal, with the entities, because everybody has used the word ghost and spirit interchangeable. And I really, really, really think that there's a difference. There's similarities, but there's a difference. Ghosts I consider to be earthbound. They're energies with memories, personalities, and knowledge. But ghosts are earthbound. And they're earthbound because they choose to be, for one reason or another. Spirits, on the other hand, are those same energy entities with the knowledge, memories, and personality, but they've crossed over, if you will. They have joined the energies of the cosmos or heaven or Valhalla or whatever you want to call the other side. So therein lies the distinction that I make with those two words. Ghosts are earthbound, spirits have crossed over. And as we go on tonight, I'll be using both of those words because I've encountered both ghosts in England and spirits.
Do you remember the first spirit that ever came to you? I believe it was your grandfather. What was that experience like? Tell us emotionally what you went through when that incident happened.
Well, I was sitting alone. Alone, no other humans, but I was with the family dog. And being a teenager, and suddenly see something materialize in full color in front of you, like a room away, basically, was quite frightening. I never experienced that before. My mother never even spoke about it, which I found odd, given that she had the gift. So I grabbed the dog and I ran outside. I was petrified.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And nobody else was home, of course. So when my mom and dad pulled up, and I don't remember how many minutes or hours I sat outside with the dog, but I did not want to go back in the house. When they came home, I told them about it outside, and I remember my mother saying, "Oh, okay, well, we need to talk." So she told me about her abilities, and as it turned out, she was afraid to use her abilities. I was not. I looked at it differently. I looked at it as a gift. It was a comfort, and it turned out to be a comfort. But when you're growing up and you're a teenager, you're trying to find your place in the world. You're trying to learn things. You're trying to become educated. You basically ignore messages from spirit because your own life is so complicated, and that's exactly what happened. So over time, I had encounters with ghosts as I got older. When I went back to school in the late 90s, or the mid 90s, I should say, for college, to get another degree, I lived in a house that turned out to be haunted. And that was quite a wild experience. I actually wrote about that in my book, Ghosts and Spirits. I was thinking the entire time I lived there, which was about 2 years, that there was a ghost in the house, but the ghost was outside. I don't know why I was thinking that. When you're younger, you just don't know. Until I walked in the kitchen when I was from where I was studying inside, and all the cabinet doors were open by themselves, and there was nobody else in the house. And then I realized the ghost was inside, and that freaked me out. So there were a couple of times where I was really rudely awakened by earthbound ghosts on the other side. And one such incident I'll explain later in the program as we go through the experiences in England, because a ghost actually did what I asked him, but he startled me. So I'll leave it at that. That's my show teaser.
Well, I can tell you this. I know exactly what it's like to live in a haunted place. I remember my ex-wife and I were renting a duplex, and our best friends lived on the other side. And our side was completely haunted. And I remember calling up my realtor after literally I had seen a little girl standing about a foot and a half away from me while I was sleeping on the couch. I thought it was my daughter, but then I realized that my daughter was on the couch with me. And it scared me enough. I remember the next day I called up the realty office where we rented the place off of, and I said to the realtor, I said, "Do you know my house is haunted?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Well, it is." And he's like, "What?" His words were to me, "Well, that doesn't surprise me, because about 80% of all homes in your town are haunted."
Wow. What's the reason for that?
It's an old logging, mining, riverboat community, and a very rough, tough history, lots of suicide, lots of First Nations battles before the white man came. It's just a very, very tough area energy-wise, and it has a lot of UFO sightings too. And it was just something that it caught me off guard with what the realtor said, like you're not expecting it to be haunted? What? You don't want a ghost that isn't haunted? Come on. Honestly, it was a little intimidating to hear him say that.
So was this ghost Native American?
No, the one that I had seen in that place was a little girl about maybe 3 years old. That's why I originally thought it was my daughter, because my daughter was around the same age. And it wasn't until my eyes focused, and she had curly, long hair, very thick curls, pudgy, childlike cheeks because she hadn't lost her baby fat. She was wearing a white nightie that I could see right through, and on the other side of her I could see, this is dating myself here, but I could see on my VCR the time was 4:02 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, that wasn't fun. That wasn't fun at all.
Did you see her more than one time?
No, only the once. Heard her once. Heard her say "mommy" once. The night we were moving out, we were scrubbing the closets out because we wanted to make sure everything was clean. And literally, it was like, "Mommy," from the storage area, and we were out. We're like, "That's it. That's enough." But that place was so weird, Rob, because the pitter-patter of feet running all around, upstairs, and you got the dogs and the two cats sitting, or the dog and the two cats sitting right by you, and they're kind of looking up as they hear the child running up and down the floor, even though your daughter's asleep or not home, maybe at Grandpa and Grandma's. It was strange. There was always something happening. All of our drinking glasses went missing. Our teaspoons went missing. Oh, it was just everything that was happening.
Wow, that was quite a roommate you had there, Dave.
Yeah. What do you do, though? What do you do? I actually talked to a psychic medium, Derek White Skycloud, who is very familiar with our audience on this show. He was just on a couple nights ago. And one of the things, he actually read my place. And he's like, "You have 4 spirits there." He goes, "Do you ever hear scratching in the master bedroom closet?" I said, "Yes." He goes, "Okay." He goes, "Because I'm seeing you live in an older place." He goes, "The feeling I get was you had somebody who used to use a lot of heavy drugs like heroin who would hide in the closet to do it. And heroin addicts are known to scratch. Therefore, there would be... And all the time, it sounded like we had scratching on the walls coming from inside the closet."
Oh, my gosh.
And then he confirmed the little girl. And then he looked at me, and I remember Derek saying this. He said, you know, you have issues sometimes with having a bath in your bathroom. And I said, yes. He says, well, I could tell you that it looks like the mother of this little girl, who was very upset, committed suicide in the bathroom. And I was because all of a sudden you would be having a bath or a shower, and you'd be like, I got to get out right now. Like, right now. You know, so you'd still have soap in your hair, man, and you'd, like, get the hell out. It was just very weird, very strange. And then he said there was somebody outside. We later found out the one we could confirm was that there was a hunter back in the day before the area that was developed that was killed accidentally in that exact area.
Interesting. Okay. And have you seen the hunter?
I never saw him. I only saw the little girl there. Saw the little girl. Very strange. Wow. Very strange property.
Wow. Sounds like somebody, whoever lives there now, has a couple of roommates that they may not be aware of.
Well, it's funny because when we still lived in that town, my daughter who had a friend who lived like 4 houses down that she went to high school with. And so we'd drop her off or pick her up, and my daughter could not even look at the place because every time she did, she'd be like, Dad, she's staring at me. The little girl is staring at me because her old window was right in the front. She's like, I could feel her. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, okay, well, we'll hurry this up.
Wow. That's
very powerful stuff.
Yeah, that's really unnerving. So, yeah, there have been some paranormal investigations I've been on that are like that have multiple entities in them. But they weren't always. They don't always make you feel uncomfortable. It depends on I think it depends on the personality. So certainly the mother, if she committed suicide in the house, had some serious emotional issues, and she was disturbed, and that just radiates to the living.
Do you like being a psychic medium?
That's an interesting question. Nobody's actually ever asked me if I liked it. I guess I do. I do because I've been able to help people since I've acknowledged my gift. I've been able to provide people with a lot of comfort. And so, we're all here to help each other. And any way we can do that, I think, is a very rewarding thing. I just like to help people and get over their grief. And I have to tell you, I've written, because you mentioned I've written a couple of books. 2 of them are called Pets in the Afterlife and Pets in the Afterlife 2. I get emails from people all the time about their pets who have passed, and people grieve harder for their pets often than they grieve for people they know, simply because pets rely on us 100% of the time, and they give us unconditional love. They don't talk back, and they're just always there for us. So people have a hard time getting over their pets, and I've been able to give people just a sign or two from their pet to let them know that they're still there, very much connected to them, and to get an acknowledgement and a thanks to help somebody through the grief. It means a lot. So yeah, I do like having this gift. Sometimes though, tuning it out is hard, and it was impossible over in England, of course, because there are so many active earthbound ghosts over there.
Before we get into the England stuff, because I don't want to waste it right here the first hour, I figured we could get into it in the second hour. Let's talk about pets for a moment. That's what you're very much known for in the paranormal community, is communication with pets. How does that go over, considering there are many religious people out there who will strongly deny that pets even have a soul?
Oh boy, you touched the hot spot right from the beginning, did you?
It's my journalistic duty, my friend.
Yeah, I guess. Well, Dave, you are a master of journalistic duty. Yeah, that question right there is actually my biggest pet peeve. No pun intended. When people say animals don't have souls, well, let's think about this for a minute. I always preface my talks by saying, what is a soul? And basically, a soul is the energy within us, and combined with our memories, our knowledge, and our personality. Those things make up a soul, and that's what becomes basically either an earthbound ghost or a spirit. But a soul lies within every living thing. If every living thing did not have memories, personality, or knowledge, they wouldn't be able to function. They'd be lifeless zombies. And, I know that there are some people walking around that that it seems to me some days don't have, knowledge or personality, but but it's not true. Every living thing has a soul. Animals have been on Earth a lot longer than humans have ever been. And, harken back to millions of years to the dinosaurs. They had knowledge to survive, and they did, and reproduce. And they continued to. And all animals do. They have that knowledge. So to say an animal doesn't have a soul is just really uninformed. It's just, to me, it's uneducated, if you will. There are not countless mindless zombies that populate the earth. So
I'll take that a step further, Rob, because I guess the way I like to argue it with the people who say that is, well, is God the creator of all in your belief? Well, yes, he is. I mean, that's always the old Alpha and Omega comment that kind of comes out after that. Well, wonderful. Why do you think that he would create us as the only ones with souls?
Yeah, actually, and, you can take that a step further. I mean, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. And it applies to any religion. Or non-religion, for that matter. If we think here on planet Earth that we are the only life forms in the cosmos, that is really arrogant. There are countless worlds out there. We've already been able to catalog and confirm over 4,400 planets with using the Kepler and the Hubble Space Telescopes, and there are another 4,000 plus worlds that we are working on confirming right now. Plus, we just launched a planet hunter, out of NASA. That's called TESS, which is an exoplanet hunter, which is going to confirm many of those planets that are waiting, they're pending confirmation. And last year, we found the TRAPPIST-1 system. That is a system much like our own, and I believe that there are 3 planets in what's called the habitability zone, which means it's just far enough from the star and has an atmospheric composition that could support life. So we are not alone, and it's just a matter of time before we find that out. We've also found, of course, water and ice on the moons of Jupiter. So those can support life. We found ice on Pluto. And there's evidence that there is underground water on Mars. We've already found that too. So there's life out there.
Well, better not tell old Trumpy there, because he'll want to give all that life some new freedom. Freedom.
Oh, please don't get me started on politics.
I had to. I would have said the exact same thing if it was Obama or Bush. They need freedom. Let's send in the boys. Is there oil there? We got to get some freedom going.
Yeah.
it's a Canadian thing, my friend. We gotta, give that little jab every now and again.
Okay.
But you are right,
to the
though.
moon, Alice. That's all I can say.
But you are right, though. It was something that you look at and you think, okay, the whole religious aspect, especially when it comes to pets, I don't even know where that theory came from. Maybe from a priest or a rabbi or something along those lines who just couldn't fathom the fact that, animals could be as close to God or whatever powerful deity or entity is up there, just as much as a human. And it does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they figure out how to survive. I mean, there are a lot of people in the world today, they couldn't figure out how to survive if things weren't handed to them. So, give credit where credit is due, really. And, a lot of the religions today are, religion is a man-made thing. Spirituality is not. Believing that there's something more is spirituality. Man has created the different religions based on what they think. So, and they act as guidelines, and religions can be good and then they can be bad. But to look at religion as a science is totally wrong. Is to really do a disservice to society, because it's not. And when you have religions that are 2,000 plus years old, and they're saying, well, the earth is this way or that way, and things have no soul. Well, that's 2,000 years ago. We've come a long way in 2,000 years. We have science now. So we need to pay attention and learn and move forward instead of moving backward. And I say that as a scientist.
Is it tough to, and you know what, I want to continue on the animals here, but I want to ask you this just for a quick second, Rob. How do you combine being a scientist, you're a meteorologist, with being a psychic medium? I mean, the two are not supposed to correlate or mix. It's like oil and water.
Well, yeah, that's true. They're not supposed to mix, but I use basically the science of energy to explain the paranormal. And I do think that science is catching up to the paranormal, where it's just actually going to be perceived one day as normal. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, we're all made up of energy, and energy is the foundation of the paranormal. So I think that's a good way to start incorporating science. The other part of that with the entities that I didn't elaborate on was how the entities get strong enough with energy to communicate. And this goes for pets as well as people. They all behave the same. So I made the distinction earlier that ghosts are earthbound and spirits are the ones that have crossed over. What I didn't mention was that both of them use energy to get strong enough to communicate with the living. They use physical energies and they use emotional energies. So ghosts and spirits use heat, light, water, and electricity. But the distinction comes in the emotional spectrum of energy. And your emotions have energy. Anger, fear, anxiety, depression, those are negative emotional energies. And, if you're dealing with somebody who's angry or anxious, you can feel it when you walk into a room. And you can feel their energy. So ghosts thrive on that. Spirits, however, thrive on love, hope, and faith. And those are the things that empower them and give them the energy to communicate with us from the other side.
When it comes to pets, we always think dogs or cats. When you are dealing with any type of animal, are animal spirits different per spirit? Or per breed, I guess I should say?
Well, Dave, they all behave the way they did in the physical. So people ask me sometimes if I can connect with wild animals, and the answer to that is no. I can't understand wild animals in spirit just the way I can't understand wild animals communicating in the physical. The only reason I can connect, and other mediums can connect with pets and spirit, is because they're domesticated. They've been associated with us, so they and we know each other. They know our language. I mean, if you think about it, they know words that we use. We train them with different words. They know our habits. They know, they can read our emotions. Certainly, they know that we're happy, when we're sad, when we're depressed, when we really need a hug. They know when we're angry at them if they did something wrong, because they go, they slink away with their tails between their legs if they're dogs. So they read our emotions. And in my two books, the Pets in the Afterlife, Pets in the Afterlife 2, I actually include scientific studies about pets and how that helps measure their intelligence and their emotion. So Dr. Stanley Coren, who's really well renowned for writing about pets, he wrote The Intelligence of Dogs and How Dogs Think, and I love those books. He concluded that dogs have the intelligence of a 3 to 5 year old human child, and they do. I mean, really, when you think about it, how they know routine. Anybody who has a dog or a cat, for that matter, if you break the routine, they're going to let you know about it, right? So there's another scientific study too that I reported on in my books about the emotional side, measuring a dog's emotions. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't. Explain it to us. Okay.
Well, back a couple of years ago, Dr. Gregory Burns, who is a neuroscientist at Emory University in Georgia, in Atlanta. For all your listeners there, be proud of him because he's pretty cool. He actually decided to dispel that ridiculous myth that we mentioned about 20 minutes ago, that animals don't have souls or emotions. And he's a hero of mine for doing so. So I think he wrote the book called How Dogs Love Us. And what he did was he trained his dog and a bunch of other dogs to sit still in an MRI. And for anybody that's had an MRI, you really have to sit stock still in that for quite a while. Have you had one, Dave?
I have never had an MRI. I'm lucky.
Oh. Well, count yourself fortunate. So you really have to not move. And it's really loud in there too. It's so loud, in fact, that they give you earplugs. So, and I'm gonna address the loud humming of an MRI when we get into the next hour about my experience in England, because I ran into a portal like that in one of the castles. But back to the pets. Dr. Burns trained dogs to sit still in this MRI, and by doing so, he was able to scan their brain. So he would have a lab person that the dog didn't know come up and try to give the dog a treat or pet the dog, and he would scan their brain. And then he would have the pet parent go up to the dog to try and pet the dog or give the dog a treat. And he would scan their brain. And what he found was that the emotional response, the response basically of love in the caudate of the brain, was identical to the reactions in the human brain that show love. So he was able to prove that dogs have the same exact emotions that humans do, and the emotion of love. So take that, people who think that dogs don't have souls.
What about if you had like a pet reptile or fish? Do they count too in that?
They do. I mean, like I said, everything has a soul. But as a medium, it's harder for me to pick up on things like that, because I don't know. They certainly don't have the intelligence to pick up or the number of words that dogs do. For instance, dogs are quite intelligent creatures. I mean, like when you think about it, like a border collie has been known. The border collie breed is one of the most intelligent ones. They have been known. Some border collies have been known to memorize up to 1,000 human words, which is more than a 3-year-old human has the ability to do, really. But in terms of other animals, I have received messages from birds and rabbits and horses. Haven't tried with a reptile yet, so that will be a new one. But again, any animal that's been domesticated and that's been around humans can certainly recognize sounds and habits and so forth, so they can convey them to a medium. They can repeat them, is basically what they're doing. And they can. The other thing too about spirit in the animal's spirit is that they can actually make a medium see something from their perspective. So. And they can actually make a medium visualize it.
Do you have to have the pet in front of you while you're doing that, Rob?
In spirit, you mean?
Or even if let's say the dog is alive.
Oh, you mean a living pet?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different kind of ability. That's to work with living pets and to understand what they're exactly saying. That would be an animal communicator. That would be someone who understands the behavior of the animal and the body language, and they're able to piece together exactly what the animal may be thinking. So that's an animal communicator. I only talk to dead pets, so that makes me a medium.
I tell you, I adopted my friend's German Shepherd. Beautiful dog, just gentle as anything. Sleeps in my little guy's room and everything. Mm-hmm. Very, very watchful of my little guy. But he hates the rabbit and the cats. Just hates them. Oh. Hates them with a passion. And I got out of all my lists of people, I got to find another animal communicator to kind of, sit him down and say, "Look, buddy, like you can't be doing this. You can't be doing this right now." I like the rabbit. The cats, well, yeah, but the rabbit I like.
It's difficult for. So did he come in after the rabbit and the cats, or was it vice versa?
Oh no, the cat and the rabbits were here first.
They were, okay.
Yes, he hasn't quite accepted them as family yet.
Well, yeah. Sometimes it takes a while with anybody to accept someone who's a little different from them. But maybe he's a type A personality and he wants all the attention. So.
Well, him and my dog have some pretty good scraps. They pin each other down all the time. It's pretty good. Like they're best friends. They're absolute best friends, and they just play hard. But no, the cats and the rabbit he just don't like. He's not a fan. I don't think they would be Facebook friends.
So he puts up with them.
Only if we're around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's the trick.
Yes. But being a medium to animals, what are some of the weird or strange comments an animal that is passed on has got you to pass forward?
Well, some of the comments have actually been quite moving. In my Pets in the Afterlife 2 book, there was a dog that I will never forget. His name is Clancy. And he was a spaniel, and his mom emailed me about the dog's passing, and she wanted answers about how the dog had passed. And this dog provided enough information to me to help other pet parents who have pets. So this was, not only really emotionally moving to me. But this dog was so intelligent that he gave this message. Long story short, when his mother, who I'll call Elizabeth, emailed me, she told me that she was out with friends and her husband was home with the dog, and he called her and said that the dog was shaking and limping and not doing well, and she said that she rushed home. It was 8:30. She looked at the dog. She called the emergency vet, and she thought that the dog had maybe hurt his leg or something, and she thought that she would just watch him for an hour or two, and then if he didn't improve, he would bring the dog to the vet. Well, within 2 hours, the dog had passed away, and she was beside herself. She didn't know what had happened in the time that she had been out. So she wanted answers. Well, Clancy showed me that he liked to nibble on plants. And I emailed her back and I said, Clancy's telling me that he was eating plants and that it caused really bad pain in his stomach. And pets share their pain of death with me as humans do, which, again, also happened a lot in England as well as anywhere. But so I told her in my email that he was eating plants and he got severe stomach pain, and basically he was poisoned by eating a plant. And I asked her if she had plants in the backyard that may be poisonous. She didn't know. So I went on the ASPCA website and sent her a list of toxic plants, and I think there's a list of like 150 common toxic plants, even like lilies of the valley that people have in their backyard that you may not know are poisonous, but they are. Turns out when she reviewed the list and emailed me back, she had quite a few of those plants. And she told me that Clancy loved eating plants in the backyard. So Clancy's warning was to all pet parents, please understand that some of these plants, these common house plants that you buy, can kill a dog or a cat or any pet. And go on the ASPCA website and look them up, because it's really, really important that you do. So that was probably the most moving story or message from a pet.
Any funny ones that because some pets do have quite the sense of humor?
They do. There were a couple of funny ones where one pet had come through and said they liked I'm trying to remember the name of the dog because I get messages from literally thousands of dogs and cats over the last couple of years. The funniest one was this dog came through and he said, I have this yellow squeaky bone and it's my favorite, and I absolutely do not want I don't want my parents to give it to the other dog in the house. It's mine. It's only mine. So I wrote, I wrote them back on an email. These are all just email exchanges, and I don't know. Of course, I don't know anything about the people. I don't know anything about the dog. I didn't even know if they had another dog. So I wrote this back, and I said, Charlie or whoever is telling me that he has a yellow squeaky bone and he doesn't want it anywhere near his brother. And I said, do you have another dog in the house, a male dog? And did Charlie have a yellow squeaky bone? And was he pretty possessive about it? And the person wrote back and said, yeah, he does have a yellow squeaky bone. It was his favorite bone, and he never let the other dog play with it. So we're going to keep that bone separate up with his ashes. So I just thought that was funny that, the dog really showed his personality in spirit, as dogs do. Sometimes one dog will be playing with something and the other dog will come by and take it out of their teeth and run away with it.
Little arrogant for the dog to try and take the bone into the afterlife.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe he just didn't want anybody else to have it. So if he couldn't play with it, nobody can play with it. Kids are that way.
This is true. I could see that happening too, because, my dog, my big dog, Doug is his name. He loves tennis balls, but, to watch him around a tennis ball, he doesn't like anybody touching his tennis balls. That's what sets him off. Absolutely sets him off, is somebody touching his tennis balls.
See, they really do behave like human children, and anybody who's a pet parent knows that. Our 3 dogs are our children. We're not going to have human children, and I call them my kids. They are my kids. They'll always be. And besides, they don't talk back. Whenever I give talks about pets in the afterlife, I always open my talk by saying the only difference between pets and human children is that pets will never grow up and marry someone you hate and move away.
Isn't that the truth? My friend, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are through a quick hour number 1 on Spaced Out Radio. Rob Gutro is our guest tonight on the Mighty SOR. We're going to be talking about his mediumship and the ghosts of England. This is going to get real interesting here, my friends, so I hope you stick around and check it out, because it's going to be really good, some of the old spirits that Rob has dealt with in writing this book. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, the weekend begins. Joe Roop with Spaced Out Saturdays coming in at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. The legendary Stanton Friedman will be his guest tomorrow night. It's going to be a great show indeed, so make sure you tune in for that one. Sunday night, we are going to be doing another network replay. We are just getting ready to train someone else to take over the Sundays. So get ready. We're going to bring live Sundays back here in probably the next week or two. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, at over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and you can listen to us anytime you like on the Fringe FM. Yes, go to thefringe.fm. and listen today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. The password is password. Yes, he took it easy on me tonight. Password is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just type in Spaced Out Radio. You'll find us. We are also on Periscope.tv live every Monday through Friday night. We really appreciate you tuning us on in for that one. Thank you very much. And we are also on YouTube, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. I would appreciate if you subscribe to that. That's where we store all of our archives. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read The Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight's guest is Rob Gutro. He is a psychic medium, plus paranormal investigator, scientist, author. He's a man of many hats. And we welcome Rob back in tonight. His latest book, and I highly suggest you check it out, Ghosts of England, a medium on a medium's vacation. You can get it on Amazon. I highly suggest you go over there and check out any of Rob's books. Rob, welcome back.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me tonight.
Not a problem. Now, during the break, you were actually telling me a great story about one of the clients who called you about their parrot. I'd love it if you filled us in on that.
Sure. So people email me from around the world, actually, about their pets who have passed. And they're always looking for a sign just to confirm that their pets are around. And we were talking about dogs and cats in the last hour, but there are other pets that can convey messages. And in this case, it was an African gray parrot. And I think the parrot lived to be about 40 years old. So the person that wrote me said that they were extremely, distraught and grief-stricken. 40 years is a long time to have a pet. So they wanted signs. Well, I responded to the email, I think it was this summer, and I provided a couple of signs, and they confirmed them. But I got a message just today from this person who said that they came out into one of their rooms, I think it was their living room, where they were looking for something. I think it was their glasses, and next to the glasses was a gray feather, and they had not seen that feather there before. So that was definitely a sign from their African gray parrot. It's fascinating how spirits can move things, which is called an apport. So they'll move things to our line of sight so that we'll see them to let us know that they're there. Oftentimes people will move coins because they're really light, and we'll find coins. And the trick is pick up the coin, look at the year, and that may give you a clue to the identity of the person or the pet that is trying to send you a message. But in this case, the African gray parrot actually sent a gray feather to their pet parrot. Pretty cool.
Do signs like that happen very often with pets?
They do. But as I tell people that when someone is in spirit, whether pet or person, the times to really look for those signs are birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. Same thing with people, birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. And the reason for that is that those are people and pets in spirit know that those are the times that we miss them the most, and we want to hear from them. And pets know birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays because they've lived long enough with us to know that they can sense the energy change. They know that either people get together, they can sense higher emotional energy throughout whatever period that is. Anniversaries don't need to be wedding anniversaries. They could be the anniversaries of the day you adopted the pet, or an anniversary of the passing of the pet, or some other significant milestone in their lives. So birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, and don't discount anything, because when it comes to spirit, there's no such thing as a coincidence.
Yeah, my time with my dog, it's just before Christmas. That's when I start. It really starts to hit me, because it was December 17th, 2008. I had to put him down. And that was not a fun time for me. He had had a stroke, and I'll never forget the night before when we scheduled everything. And I remember looking at him, and he would always jump up on the couch with me, and he wouldn't jump up on the couch. And I had to pick him up and put him up on the couch, and I was bawling my eyes out. And I remember looking at him and saying, buddy, like, tell me what's wrong. What do I got to do here? And I'll never forget, he picked up his head from the pillow, and he looked at me, and it was like telepathically he said to me, just through his eyes, Dad, I'm done. Mm-hmm. And I just broke right down there, And, so Christmas, I could see where the dates hit, because Christmas is pretty hard on me because, geez, it's been 10 years now since I had to put him down. And, I still think about him all the time. I wish he was still around. Best dog I ever had.
Well, he's still around, Dave. He's just around in spirit. And your other dogs likely have seen him. And one thing that I've learned as a medium and a dog dad is that our pets don't reincarnate until we are gone. They come back as we do, but only when all their contemporaries are gone. So one of the things that people should know is that if you adopt another dog after your dog passes, and you see that new dog taking on just some of the traits or quirks that your other dog had, that's a perfect sign from your other dog in spirit, because what's happening there is that your dog in spirit is training the new dog to have the habits that they had when they were alive in the physical.
Yeah, that didn't quite happen with me. My other two dogs are so different from my other guy. My other guy never had to leash. Never had to leash. I didn't have to worry about him at all. He was just one of those dogs, just, happy to be alive. And the other two I have now, well, I got three because I just took my buddy's dog in, but the other ones, my goodness, it is nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble.
Yeah, well, again, they have their own personalities, so some of them are just untrainable, even from a spirit on the other side.
Let's move on, because I want to get to the ghosts, and the reason why we brought you on here is the ghosts of England. What made you decide to go to England? Was it specifically just for a holiday, or was it to check out some of the haunted sites?
I went strictly for vacation, and I didn't even think about the haunted places, to be honest with you. The reason that we went, my partner is really infatuated with Tudor England, and I don't share that enthusiasm or that love of Tudor England, but he does. So I had never been, and I thought, okay, that'd be great. We can go around. Who doesn't like castles, right? So, and England is so rich in history. So I said, great, yeah, I'm all for it. So he planned the trip through travel agent across the pond vacations, which did a fantastic job of finding all these places connected to the Tudor period that he didn't know about, or that I certainly didn't know anything about the Tudor period. But we even wound up staying in a luxury bed and breakfast, which is an old castle, Thornbury Castle, where we had a fantastic experience that we could talk about later on. So I went just for vacation. And usually as a medium, if I'm really involved with something, I can tune out ghosts and spirits. But England, it was a different story. They were everywhere, and everybody had a story. Everybody had something they wanted to share with me. So this book that I put together it's not a vacation guide by any means, and I didn't know anything about any of the ghosts there at all. What I do when I travel is I keep a journal. I actually carry a blank book, and I just write down everything that I experience so that I can look back and remember. Because, you forget when you go on trips. And what I wound up doing was I was writing about all these ghosts wherever I went, and I would sketch them out. And some of the sketches I actually put in the book. I think there were 3 sketches that I put in the book of the ghosts that I saw. So it turned out to be much more than just a leisure trip. It turned out to be a paranormal trip as well. And I was talking to living people as well as dead people. So it was amazing.
Now, when you go on vacation like that and you want to give yourself a break, do you try and turn off your abilities when you usually go away, just so you can have some sort of relaxation time?
I do. And it's not really like a turn on and off thing. It depends on how focused I am on something. If I really get into the history of something, or if I'm really trying to not pay attention to what, think of it this way. It's like somebody standing behind you talking softly, and you can either choose to ignore them or turn around and say, "What are you trying to say to me?" That's pretty much how it is. I will tell you, though, that it also depends. Getting messages as a medium also depends on whether or not you're physically healthy. Because a couple of years ago, we went to Italy, and I was really, really sick. I had a sinus infection that was a blockage, and I didn't want to cancel my trip. And I wound up getting sinus surgery after I came back from the trip. But I was miserable the entire time. And that sickness blocked all of the messages I would have gotten from any dead Italian people in Italy on our trip. So you really have to not be distracted, whether it be poor health or anything else as a medium to get messages.
So when you go on a faraway trip like England, you don't want to be bothered by anything going bump in the night or people trying to get a hold of you. You want to just relax and enjoy your vacay.
That's true. But in this particular case, there were so many fascinating dead people that it made it even much more interesting. So there's good and bad with everything.
You got to get into details about that. So when you got off the plane, did it start immediately? Because, let's face it, England and the entire United Kingdom has such a rich history going back centuries that literally there's ghosts everywhere. Even if things have been rebuilt, the ghosts are still there.
Oh, absolutely right. Yeah, we found ancient ruined settlements that dated back before 1100 AD. In different places that we went. So, there are absolutely ghosts everywhere. But no, when I was at the airport, actually, that was a case of being distracted, because the first thing I wanted to make sure was that the airline did not lose my luggage. So that was what I was focused on.
Did it work for you?
It did. I couldn't pick up anybody. I mean, and the hubbub of being in an airport too. There's so many living people. that sometimes it makes it really difficult to sort out who is dead and who is living. That's running in the crowd. So no, it wasn't until we got into the hotel, we checked in and we started walking around, and it was across from Parliament and Big Ben that we had our very first experiences.
So all of a sudden this starts happening, Rob, and I guess it kind of forces you right there to start writing in a journal or something what is going on.
Right. So as you mentioned, I kept that journal. I keep a bound journal with blank pages, and I wanted to make notes about what I was looking at, and because we take a lot of pictures, and sometimes I'll take little short videos that are about 30 seconds and just say, hey, I'm standing outside of so-and-so. So I want to be able to explain in detail what the pictures are, because I also run, not only do I have a blog for my books rather, but I have a personal blog. So I like to put vacation pictures up there and explain them just like everybody else does. I don't like looking at a picture and saying, gosh, what the heck was that? I don't remember. And, when you get my age, you're like, I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So a journal is good when you go on vacation.
Do you get hit hard? So literally you get off the plane in an area like that because there's so much spiritual energy. Is it literally starting to hit you at the airport?
It depends on where I go. And it depends also if, like I said, if I'm not preoccupied. In the case of London, no. I was able to actually block it out until I finally got on the ground in the city of London. So, and then I got hit hard.
Tell us about that.
Okay, well, the very first ghost that I encountered was just when I was walking past what's called the Jewel Tower. It's one of the standing structures of Whitehall Palace, what was Whitehall Palace, which was a huge palace that Henry VIII had. The palace is no longer standing, and the Jewel Tower sits across from Parliament. So as we were walking by, I saw a woman walking in period clothing, and she walked right into a wall, right through a wall, basically. And I stopped and I thought, wait a minute, I just saw a woman in a big flowing gown, and I thought she was part of, the Jewel Tower exhibit or whatever it is, and she disappeared. But I got a clear enough picture of her or a vision of her rather, that I was actually able to sketch her and the dress that she was wearing in detail. And when I got home, I went through the internet and I found out that it matched the dress that she was wearing matched a dress from the 1600s. So that was pretty amazing. I didn't have to even go in a place in order to see a ghost.
The people and the loved ones around you when this is happening, Rob, are they comfortable with what you are seeing? Do they see for themselves? Like your partner, for instance, does he see for himself?
That's great that you brought that up, because what's interesting is that he did not have the ability to sense ghosts or spirits until we went to England. Now, he's always been drawn to England, as people are drawn to places, and I think that the reason we're drawn to places is that we've lived there before in another period, and I truly think that that's what happened to him. What happened was, when we got to our next location, which was Westminster Abbey, his abilities woke up, and whenever I was sensing a ghost in Westminster Abbey, and there are a lot of them, he would start smelling what smelled like a rotted corpse. That was his gift came out that way. And I thought, wow, that's an awful version of being able to sense ghosts. So, since then it's toned down. It's been a couple of years. But because he lived there before in a different life, everything came flooding back to him and his abilities opened up. So what happened from that point on for the rest of our trip, and we actually went back again the following year to England, we were both sensing ghosts. And what we would do is we would make notes of what we were sensing, and then we compared our notes, and we had sensed the exact same things. But Westminster Abbey was a trip. There's been a lot of ghosts, as we've learned, that are reputed to haunt Westminster Abbey. One is a monk, of course, which would make perfect sense. But here's one of the quirky things, and this was actually a physical experience that we both experienced at the same time. Have you been to Westminster Abbey?
I have never been out of North America. I feel shame about that.
Well, hopefully I'll inspire you to go. Because the Westminster Abbey and all of England has so much to offer. So for those who don't know what Westminster Abbey is, it's been a church since 1066 AD. And in the Abbey, 17 monarchs are actually buried there, and 3,000 people are buried under the floor. So there are a lot of dead people there. Although it's been a church since 1066, the building that stands there now wasn't constructed until 1245. So, with anything that was built in 1066, time took its toll on it. It was they were mostly wooden structures, apparently, initially. So anyway, there are different chapels located in Westminster Abbey. The tomb of Queen Elizabeth is located there, and the tomb of Anne of Cleves. Now, Anne of Cleves was actually the place where our big experience happened. Anne of Cleves was actually the fourth wife of King Henry VIII. Do you know much about Henry VIII?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. So he, whenever he gets tired of a wife, he would take their head off, or he would.
I mean, he had the legal power to do it. Not that I agree with that, but divorce would have been a little bit easier.
Yeah, which is why the Church of England it has been all changed, and he became the head of the Church of England. So Anne of Cleves, there's a tomb of Anne of Cleves there, and she was only married to Henry 6 months. And I found out she was actually never crowned queen, which is interesting. She was set up with Henry VIII, and he found her unattractive. So he quickly divorced her, and she became known as the king's beloved sister. And the king, Henry VIII, wound up giving her Hever Castle, which actually was a castle that actually belonged to the Boleyn family, and Anne Boleyn was one of his other queens. And the Boleyn, by the way, the Hever Castle, if we can get to that tonight, that's where I had a ghostly tour guide that actually walked me through all of the different rooms in that castle, and he told me who he was, and I was astounded. But getting back to Westminster Abbey, we were both looking at the tomb of Anne of Cleves, and we were both standing 20 feet apart from each other. So picture two guys looking at this tomb, and we're about 20 feet apart from each other, and I sensed a female entity standing between us, and suddenly the hair on my head on the right side was pulled hard. At the same exact time, the hair on the left side of Tom's head was pulled hard. So this ghost, this female ghost who was standing between us, pulled our hair at the exact time. And we were like, I don't know, between 10 and 20 feet apart. Certainly longer than somebody's arms can reach. But we both looked at each other immediately. And I said, did you feel that? And he said, somebody pulled my hair. And I said, oh my God, somebody pulled my hair. And it was like a ghost was standing right between us. It must have been two ghosts. But then again, they can defy physics. But that was fascinating that we both had the same exact physical experience from a ghost looking at a tomb. So it must have been Anne of Cleves. It was pretty cool. Of course, there were other ghosts walking around in there, and I did see the monk. He was in the cloisters area. And I also got poked in the gift shop, which is now the gift shop. So there are other ghosts that I wrote about that I had experiences in there. But the hair pulling was certainly startling enough to get my attention.
I got a question from Gail in regards to you being at Westminster Abbey. She goes, if there are multiple ghosts in that area from different ages, are they even aware of each other?
That's a really good question. I've received that question a lot. And my answer to that is some are and some are not. It's hard for me to actually tell if they're aware of each other because they come from different times, and they may be at different energy levels. But for the most part, I think that they are not aware of each other, because they just continue to do their own – they focus on their own business. It's just like we do when we're going through like a crowd or something in life. We're focused on doing what we want to do. Ghosts are the same way. They're people. You know, they're going to be focused on what they do. And you tend to ignore people that, you know, just walk by you or don't have anything to do with you. Often what a ghost usually wants is either A, to be recognized, or B, help to cross over. So they know that the living are the ones that can help them.
Could it be different planes that the different spirits from different ages are on?
It could very well be. You know, I wish I knew all the answers to these questions, but we'll know once we get on the other side, certainly. And then we have to make the effort to come back into the living.
I just find that a little strange. You know, that, hey, I'm Jimmy the blacksmith from the 14th century. Who are you? Well, I'm Dave Scott from the 21st century. You know, just dead, recently dead. What's new here? What are the rules? You know, where do we go shopping? Give me the fishing hole that catches the most fish. You know what it's like. I mean, I want to communicate with these guys, Rob.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like I said, I don't know if they can actually see each other or sense each other or not, but that would be pretty cool to know.
Let's continue on with your book. And in chapter 4, you go into the Ghost of Jewel Tower. Tell us what that's all about.
Oh, that was actually the one that we talked about right from the get-go.
Right,
that was
right.
The one,
I apologize.
that's all right. Where I saw the woman.
I forgot to tick it off on my notes.
That's okay.
I ticked off the Westminster Abbey, and I got all into that story, and I forgot to tick off the Jewel Tower. All right, let's go to Chapter 6 with Lord Moon of the Mall's ghostly patrons.
Well, anywhere you go in London or in England, you're going to find a ghost, hands down. So even when you go out for, you know, like a burger and fries or fish and chips, which, by the way, they have the best fish and chips, you may be dining with other people, living and dead. And that's exactly what happened when we went to this pub near Trafalgar Square. When I got there, of course, I took pictures of the bar. And by the way, for those who have never visited a British pub, there are a couple of things that you have to understand. You always have to. You can find a seat wherever you want, but you're not going to get waited on. You actually have to go to the bar and put your order in. All food orders are placed in the bar, and then you're given a table number. And actually, once the food is done, then they bring it out to your table. So don't go into a bar when you go to England for the first time, or a pub rather, and sit at a table and wait to be seated, because you'll be sitting there until you're a ghost.
Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that you have to learn. Whenever I go on paranormal investigations, one of the things that I like to do is take pictures. And I don't take a lot of stock in orbs. And for those who are listening who don't know what an orb is the most simple form a ghost can take, or a spirit. It's like a round ball of light. And the way I distinguish orbs from dust and pollen and reflections and all kinds of non-orbs is that orbs tend to have colors and designs in them. And sometimes they have faces in them. In one particular case that I was on with Inspired Ghost Tracking, kind of sidetracking a little bit here, we did what's called a double murder ghost investigation. It turned out that there were 2 people murdered in a home. The mediums didn't know that, but myself and another medium, were able to piece this all together and then confirm it with police reports later. One of the photographs that was taken by one of the investigators was an orb in the room that we kept sensing somebody. And when we blew the photograph up, there was the face of one of the women who were murdered. So orbs can have faces in them. By the way, I made that photograph the cover of my book, Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead. So if you go on Amazon and you look at it, you'll be able to see the face of a woman, the woman that was murdered. So getting back to the pub, I took multiple pictures, and when I sensed the presence of a ghost, I took more pictures, and sure enough, there was an orb. There was an orb right next to me. And there were quite a few orbs, as it turned out. So, people still hang around having their drink. But the ghost that I sent told me his name was Andrew, and he actually worked there before it was a pub. So it was some other kind of shop. But he's still hanging around because he was dedicated to his work, as most people will do. So just whenever you're in a place, take multiple pictures, because you never know what will show up. And we did that wherever we went, of course. And when just so you know, Dave, when we went to England, we went all over. We went to Canterbury. We went to Stratford upon Avon, where the home of William Shakespeare. We went to York. We went to Bath. We went to Portsmouth, and Windsor, and of course we spent the most time in London. But all of those places had their own ghosts and their own stories. And if when you go, and I'm telling you, Dave, you need to go. When you go, Portsmouth is on the southwestern side of England, and when we went in 2013, they opened a museum called the Mary Rose Museum, and the Mary Rose Museum is fascinating. In the 1980s, King Henry VIII had a ship called the Mary Rose, and it was damaged and sunk and archaeologists found it, and it was half buried in the sand, and off the coast of Portsmouth. And they brought it up, and then they built a museum around it, and then they found all kinds of things from the ship in there, including the skeletons of some of the men and the skeleton of a dog. That I think the dog's name was Hatch. And they were forensically, they were actually able to recreate what these men and the dog looked like, and they have displays in this museum. It's just really fascinating. I like forensic science. Being a paranormal investigator is like being a forensic scientist in a backwards kind of way. So, anyway, the Mary Rose Museum in Portsmouth is well worth a trip.
Let's move on here into another chapter of your book, because we are talking about Rob's latest book tonight, which is... Oh, man, my computer's just all of a sudden went right into slug mode here.
Sleep mode?
I don't know why. Like, come on.
It sounds like you have a spirit in there.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, so the latest book is Ghosts of England.
Ghosts of England immediately. Exactly. You know, this is a problem, Rob, when sometimes you rely too heavily on technology rather than pen and paper.
I hear you.
You know, like I have all my windows set up for everything, and you know, when something decides to stall, it's like, you got to be kidding me. All right, let's go over to St. Paul's Cathedral, because I can just imagine how haunted that place could be.
Oh gosh, yeah. Any place of worship is always filled with ghosts. If you're a medium, or if you're sensitive at all, often you can feel a lot of residual energy. And I should preface the story by saying what the difference is between residual and intelligent energy. So residual energy is basically an imprint of energy left by emotions on a structure. And that energy comes back, or you can feel that energy when you walk into the structure, because you're bringing your own energy with you. So it like radiates from the walls. And there was plenty of that kind of energy in there, because people go there and they go there because they're looking for help, or they're faithful, or they're sad, or they're happy. All of that energy just radiates out from the structure. Intelligent haunts, if you will, are interactive ghosts. They're ghosts that can actually answer questions. They can move things. They can tap you. They can pull your hair, like the one in Westminster Abbey. They can do all kinds of things. This particular location, the St. Paul's Cathedral, was really full mostly of residual energy, but there was the ghost of a priest in there. For those who are not familiar with St. Paul's Cathedral, it's been in the city. It was built, I should say, in the year 604 AD. Just imagine that, 604. The building was destroyed, though, in 1666. London had a huge fire. I think it was called the Great Fire, appropriately enough, in 1666, and that destroyed a lot of the structures, Dave. So they had to rebuild quite a number of them in London, and St. Paul's Cathedral was one of them. This cathedral, by the way, has a huge dome on it, and it gives one of the best views of London. Now, I have to tell you, my partner is not afraid of heights. I am not a fan. So, of course, wherever we went, he wanted to go up to the top of anything, and I did not. But I did. I was a trooper. So when you go to London, go to the top, climb to the top of St. Paul's Cathedral, and you get a great view. I actually have a picture in my book of a view from the top of St. Paul's Cathedral. I was actually able to stop my hands from shaking to take the picture long enough, but it was really cool. Getting back to the ghost, though, I found out the ghost was named Father Jonathan. When I entered the west end of the cathedral, I got a headache. Now, I don't think I mentioned that before. When I'm in the presence of a ghost or a spirit, I usually get a headache. Have you ever experienced that, Dave? Or do you know anybody that's experienced headaches?
All the time. I run a tour at our local museum, a little paranormal tour, and I can feel it. I can totally feel it. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not like, and for people to understand, it's not like your regular headache, like a migraine or a pain headache or anything like that. It's like this very dim pressure that just kind of builds and builds, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I get it on the back left side of my head. Do you get it at a certain place?
Front of my head and on the sides.
That is just so interesting. So I attributed to the point to the fact that ghosts and spirits are energy, and we have a lot of electrical impulses that run through our brains, of course, because that's what thoughts are. They generate little electrical impulses, and that's how scientists measure them. So I look at the headache as a characteristic of energy overload in the brain. That's my scientific explanation. See, I'm trying to incorporate science wherever I go in all of these things. So, getting back to Father Jonathan, that was actually the name that he told me. He showed me that he was a monk, and then he told me his name was Jonathan, Father Jonathan. And he showed me that he was an elderly man, but he lived to be a good age before he passed, and that he was bald and he had a beard. And so at least I knew one of the ghosts in there. But there was quite a number of other intelligent haunts in the church. What happens is sometimes when people pass, especially those who are devout in their religion, they will choose to haunt or stay at the church that they loved worshiping at. And it's not that it may not be that they fear what's on the other side, but they become so devout in the church, they love it so much that they just want to spend, and they do spend, eternity there. And that's pretty much what happened. So when you're in a place like that, and there are so many ghosts, and you're a medium, everybody wants attention. It's like being in a stadium, a packed stadium, and everybody's yelling at you, and you're trying to listen to the one voice over everybody else's in order to figure it out, what they want. That's pretty much what it was like in St. Paul's. So
I don't know. I would be a little worried that there is a priest around, the spirit of a priest. I would, because to me, and just maybe my way of thinking, Rob, I would think that some sort of religious, person who dedicated their entire life to religion and God wouldn't be a ghost. They would be living up in the heavens with angel wings and playing a harp. You know what I'm saying? Rather than almost being in this type of, I hate to use the word purgatory, but that's what I'm going to use.
Well, that's what it really is. I totally agree with you, Dave. It is really odd to find that some religious people stay behind. And as near as I can figure it, when we pass, we get a recollection. We have an automatic recollection of the way we lived our lives and who we may have offended, or things we may have done wrong as well as right in our lives. And that keeps a lot of religious, like really religious people back. So in the case of this priest, he may have done something that he thought was wrong, to wrong somebody. So he was afraid to cross over, and he stayed behind. That happens a lot with people who are very devoted to their faith. They get totally afraid to cross over. But here's the thing. On the other side, there's nothing but love and light and positive energy and forgiveness. And it's their religious beliefs that hold them back. So, not to worry. Everybody needs to cross over. You don't want to spend eternity, because that's what it basically is, unless somebody can help you cross over and you get their attention. You don't want to spend eternity on Earth, unable to communicate with your loved ones in spirit. So for everybody listening, no matter what the reason you think it's worth staying on Earth after you pass, it's not. Move on. Get on the train.
Well, and that's what makes me wonder about that priest is, did he have enough karmic resistance to hold him back, or guilt of what he did? Because, I mean, let's face it, throughout the centuries, virgin priests haven't been so virgin after all.
That's true. That's true. Everybody has their faults, and sometimes those faults are enough to keep us from going on. I ran into another priest in England, and this guy was kind of a jerk. This was in Canterbury. Are you familiar with the Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales?
I am not, my friend.
Okay. It's like a Penguin classic book that you're sometimes made to read in high school or college, and it's written in Old English, and it's been around for a long, long time, hundreds of years, in fact. Do you know the story of Taming of the Shrew?
That I do know. Thank you
for
giving me one that's familiar there. Thank you.
Okay. I think that was in the Canterbury. That was one of the Canterbury Tales. When I was a kid, I watched them reenact that on the show Moonlighting. Do you remember that? With Sybil Shepherd
and Bruce Willis when he had hair.
Right. That was one of my favorite episodes of Moonlighting. It always makes me think of that episode, especially when I was in Canterbury. But in Canterbury, there was a priest that was totally different from the priest that I met in St. Paul's in London. This priest, as soon as I walked into Canterbury Cathedral, which is called the Mother Church of the Anglican Communion, this priest was kind of arrogant. You want me to tell you the rest of that story?
We got about 4 minutes, so yes, go right ahead.
Okay, I'll say it. I'll speak fast. It turns out when I went into this church, the ghost of Thomas Becket was the one that approached me. He was, and he came to me, and he was just really arrogant, and I didn't understand why he was that way. It turned out there's a little bit of history, and it involves Henry, King Henry. I think it was Henry II. So Thomas Becket was a friend of Henry II, and when the Archbishop of Canterbury died in 1162, Henry installed Becket as the Archbishop, and Henry wanted Becket to do his bidding. Well, Becket decided to go against the king, and that made Henry fly into a rage, and Becket was really headstrong, and he was really arrogant. So, of course, in the spirit of King Henry, and this is not Henry VIII, it's an earlier Henry, 4 men that worked for Henry came into the church and murdered Becket. And then they buried Becket's remains under the floor. So Thomas Becket still lingers in that church. And I sensed his presence when I was standing near what is now a monument that has the words Thomas written on the floor. As it turned out, they put that monument there specifically because that's exactly the place that he was praying when he was murdered by these 4 men. So the point of this is that he was apparently really headstrong and stubborn and kind of a jerk in life, which is why he turned against the king after the king got him appointed to the high position. And he's still kind of a jerk in death, as we are. You know, if we're good people in life, we're good people in death. If we're jerks in life, we're still jerks in death. So there you go.
Still got a case of the crankies is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. And
gee whiz. Gee whiz. I mean, let it go already. Let it go already. You know what I'm saying?
Get over it. Right.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Like, come on. Let it go. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. It's time to make it happen. Anyways, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's me. We got about 90 seconds here before we have to take our final break of the night, Rob. You know, and we're going to continue with more chapters from your book after this. At any point while you are going through this, are you thinking book, or are you just thinking, wow, this is just another interesting experience in my roller coaster of paranormal life?
It was the latter. I was just writing these things down and thinking, wow, this is just pretty cool. And by the time I got back, I realized how many pages I had written and how many illustrations I had done. And I thought, wow, this would be a really cool story to tell, because it's not a collection of other people's stories. It's my experiences with these ghosts.
Mm-hmm. One quick question I'm going to slip in here before we go to break. Did you tell anybody you were doing these experiments or these writings or seeing these? Did you tell anybody in Britain that you were having that? And if so, what was their response?
I didn't tell anybody that I was writing them down, but what I would do when I went into a place and I got some kind of a message or a name or whatever, is that I would check with a docent or a historian or somebody that worked there, and that would give me confirmation about who the person was. So I'm always trying to figure out the identity of the person and what they want. So I did ask them. In the case of the ghost dog that I ran into, that maybe we can talk about next hour, I did ask the docent and was able to get confirmation. So,
excellent. I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we're going to hop out for our final break of the night. Rob Gutro is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We are talking about his book, Ghosts of England on a Medium's Vacation. Some very interesting, intriguing topics about the ghosts that this American psychic medium and meteorologist had in touring England, not once but twice. We're going to get more into it right after this, and the thought of the day coming up at 45 past the hour. Stay tuned for more Spaced Out Radio. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on SpacedOutRadio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at SpacedOutRadio.com.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. The weekend is here, which means Joe Roop will be in for Spaced Out Saturdays tomorrow night. And on Sunday, we're going to have another network replay, but they are coming to an end. We have a new host that we're going to be training here very, very soon to take on over Sunday nights. It's going to be very exciting. We'll make the official announcement probably sometime next week on who that is. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. You can check it on out. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and you can check us out on The Fringe FM. Just go to your internet provider, type in thefringe.fm. It's right there all the time. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Password. Password is your password for tonight, as Bill sets password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are all over the place. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can watch us live every Monday through Friday on periscope.tv. Also, if you're looking for our archives, go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I would appreciate that. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, has a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight, we are talking with author Rob Gutro. He's a psychic medium, usually about animal communication. That is his specialty. However, he's got a brand new book out. You can pick it up on Amazon called Ghosts of England on a Medium's Vacation. Tried to turn it off, but the spirituality was just too strong. And it turned out to be a fine book that you can pick up on Amazon once again. Rob, welcome back.
Dave, good to be here.
We're going to go through more of this, of your book, that is, but I want to get to Ron's question first. Okay. Why are most ghosts old from ancient times? Since World War I, World War II suffered a great amount of losses and trauma, how come how come they're not as prevalent in Europe as, say, the ancient spirits?
That's a good question, and usually Ghosts have their own mindset on whether or not they want to stay on Earth for some reason, or whether or not they want to cross over. And as society has aged, most people realize that they have much more to look forward to on the other side. Back in the 1500s or whatever, or 1400s, 1300s, it was the afterlife was kind of scary, so people would opt to stay behind sometimes. But like for all of the deaths in World War II, most of those soldiers crossed over. And something to keep in mind too is that when anybody passes, usually our loved ones from the other side in spirit come out to greet us, and they could be person or pet on the other side. So they'll help us across. It's up to the individual to stay behind based on their personal experiences. So if they're afraid to cross over for something they may have done in the past, they would stay behind. For people who lived a long time ago, during Henry VIII's rule and even before, as I mentioned, the afterlife can be a pretty scary place. Remember, Dante's Inferno came out around that time. That was a pretty nasty picture of hell.
Yet, if you take it to North American soil, though, at Gettysburg, there are battles still raging. People still hear the what's the word I'm looking for? They still hear the battles and the cannons.
Yes. Yeah, I've been to Gettysburg, and it's really it's overwhelming for me, because I can hear people, men charging and screaming and battle, and I've sensed soldiers walking around. There's been so many. Actually, if you can just Google footage, and you'll see actual ghosts walking around, cannons that are just placed there. There's a lot of activity there, and people will sometimes linger as ghosts in places where they were murdered, or they'll linger in hospitals where they died because they'll wake up confused, or they'll choose to linger in a place that they were familiar with or happy with in life. So there are a number of places that you'll find ghosts, and a number of reasons why they're there.
Very strange. Very strange. Do you think that in England, because it's probably so loud, traffic, it's a 24-hour city, in London especially, do you think that that's maybe why people aren't hearing the battle, is because the city is just always moving and there's energy constantly flowing?
Yeah, that's a good observation. Anything that causes a distraction is something that makes it much more difficult to hear. I think, like I used the analogy before of a stadium, a packed stadium. It's like trying to hear one voice shouting at you through a packed stadium full of people all shouting at you. You just can't hear it. It just becomes background noise.
Is there any way to defeat that noise in order to maybe hear the bombs going off? Or was it such a painful time that maybe the city's energy itself has cleared that away?
Well, time certainly does clear energy. Just think of an imprint, like a fingerprint, that was made on something outside. The weather will wear it away. So sunlight is energy, and energy can help disperse other energies.
Well, London doesn't get a lot of sun, though. It's usually rainy type atmosphere.
And it rained a lot when I was visiting, by the way. So if you do visit England, always bring an umbrella or a poncho, because you'll need it. That was one of my travel tips.
Vancouver is the same way. So if you ever decide to travel to Vancouver, bring an umbrella, bring a poncho.
Good to know.
Lots of rain. Lots of rain. You're only safe between July and September.
But at least in Vancouver, you don't drive on the left side of the road.
Oh, for sure. For sure. We're going to get back into your Ghosts of England on a medium's vacation tonight, and you're going to talk about the ghost dog in John Soane's museum.
Yes. That was, again, totally unexpected. And being a pet parent and a dog rescuer, as we talked about in the first hour, dogs are very close and near and dear to my heart. So the last thing I expected when I go into a museum is to sense the ghost of a dog. But that's exactly what happened when I was in London. So for anyone who doesn't know, Sir John Soane, I should say, he was a famous British architect, and he had an interesting hobby. He used to like to collect architectural fragments and any artifacts from the antiquities, including priceless works of art. And there's quite a number of priceless works of art in his house. He actually even had a sarcophagus, and it was in his basement. He had chains from old prisons, all kinds of things. So it's not like just walking through a house. It literally is like walking through a museum with tiny pieces of history. But that was his hobby. So, as I mentioned, he was an architect, and my partner is also an architect. That's why we went into John Soane's museum. So there has to be a reason. And by the way, for anybody who visits England, it's around the corner from Baker Street and the Sherlock Holmes Museum. So it's a great place to go right after you go to the Sherlock Holmes Museum. Anyway, as I walked in the door of this museum, it's basically like a very wide row house. It's very wide. And it was under construction too when we went, so that added to the confusion. But as I walked in the door, I sensed a dog. Now, that was kind of odd to me, because the last thing you do is you expect a dog to be in a museum. As I started walking into the museum, I thought, okay, this dog lived here before, and I need to find out who this dog is. So there was a small courtyard in this row house that actually opened up to the sky. John Soane, being an architect, he designed this house, and he decided he wanted a courtyard that opened up to the sky. He was really, really amazing at bringing light into a row house. And in the courtyard was a stone. So I looked at that stone and I thought, this is where the dog is buried. And as we got closer, as we went around the courtyard from the inside, you couldn't go outside in the courtyard because it was locked. The door was locked. It said, "Alas, poor Fanny," Fanny. And I knew that had to be the dog's name. We got confirmation when we went into the gallery, because there was a huge portrait of Mrs. Soane, and on her lap was this little black and tan dog named Fanny. So now I knew who it was. So as we went through the museum, this little dog was just darting in and out of the rooms and following me. And it was actually kind of amusing. But it wasn't until we got to the gift shop where I decided I'm going to ask a docent and see if they had any experiences. So the docent actually confirmed that she has seen the dog and the ghost dog, and she said that several other people have seen the ghost dog. So she asked me if there were any ghosts of any people there, and I said no, there are no. I didn't sense any people. And she said that's interesting because nobody else has ever seen a person, the ghost of a person, only the ghost of a dog. And in the gift shop actually sells a book called The Journal of Mrs. Soane's Dog, Fanny. It's an illustrated book. It was written for kids, but of course I had to buy it because it was about Fanny. I wanted to know more about her. The other thing I learned too when I was at John Soane's house about Fanny is that when the Soanes passed away and the house was sold to a couple that had 2 dachshunds. And as I mentioned in my books, Pets in the Afterlife, dogs have the ability to see and hear ghosts and spirits. They have different cones and rods in their eyes, which enables them to see faster movement, in which the vibration of ghosts and spirits move at a higher vibration. And they can hear them if you think of a dog whistle. We can't hear it, but dogs can. And ghosts and spirits speak at different frequencies that we can't hear. So these 2 dachshunds from this owner were always freaked out. They were anxious, they were agitated, and the docent told me that these dogs would never settle down. So the person that lived in John Soane's house with these dogs said he had to move the dogs because they would never settle down. And that's because Fanny kept running through the house. What I find interesting is that, Dave, is that all of these architectural things stayed in the house after the house was sold to this person with the 2 dogs, and there's a lot. So I can't imagine moving into somebody's house with a lot of museum pieces. But so little Fanny continues to run around in John Soane's museum up in London. So if you go there, see if you can catch a glimpse of her out of the corner of your eye.
Let's move on here. I got a question from Dawn, one of our listeners. She's my neighbor. She lives about a mile away. Lovely lady, and she helps me out with my ghost tours. However, recently Dawn had a loss where her mother passed away. So she is asking, how long does it take to cross over? And how do you know that they've chosen to cross over? And before we do that, Dawn, on behalf of all of us at Spaced Out Radio, you know what you mean to us, especially around the ghost hunts. So we've been thinking about you quite a bit and sending you thoughts and prayers. So I hope you're doing well, my friend.
Well, thank you. I'm so sorry for your loss. And to answer your question, it often when we pass, we cross over pretty much immediately. Some of us will stay and linger and go to our services, and we will see just to see who came. My own dad did that. He went to his wake and his funeral. He wanted to see who came, and we're curious. And then he crossed over at the cemetery, and that happens a lot. But I sense that that your mom had crossed over pretty quickly. And someone was waiting for her. There were several people waiting for her on the other side. And what was the second part of that question, Dave?
Let me get to it here. It is, how do you know that they have chosen to cross over?
Well, as a medium, you can sense whether or not they're earthbound or if they've crossed over, and she's crossed over. Usually, when we pass, our loved ones are waiting on the other side, and that's a really big initiative to cross over. And over time, she'll give signs. Right now, if she just recently passed, you're probably experiencing a lot of grief, and grief acts as a block to signs from spirit. So, but look for things that remind you of her. You may meet people that have her same name, or you may start seeing things that she liked in life. Maybe perhaps a favorite flower. You'll start to see more of it, and or spirits give signs in a lot of different ways. They can manipulate things in nature. We haven't talked about this yet, but like birds and butterflies and so forth. If they behave erratically, and they do weird things, or they keep approaching you and coming close to you, it's likely a sign from a spirit that's trying to let you know that they're there.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's get back to your book here for a quick moment here. Sickly ghosts at the banqueting house.
Oh, that was a fascinating story. The banqueting house is, I mentioned the Jewel Tower earlier. That was like the first stop that I went in. The Jewel Tower was part of Whitehall Palace, which was one of Henry VIII's grand palaces that no longer stands. And the banqueting house was also part of that same complex. They are found between Parliament and Trafalgar Square, I believe. So in the banqueting house, that's where, of course, they used to gather to have tremendous feasts from the castle. So Whitehall Palace was so big, and this banqueting house was big enough, but Whitehall Palace, think of 23 acres that a structure spanned. I can't even imagine 23 acres, but that's how big it was. And most of the palace was actually destroyed in 1619 by another fire. London was full of fires. I talked about the fire of 1699. This was 1619, so the 1600s weren't really good for fires in London. But the banqueting house survived, and it's a 2-story brick structure, and the King Charles I used to spend a lot of time in there. So, in fact, he moved. There was a throne in there that he moved, and he used to go in there, and he thought that he had the ability to heal people. I didn't know that until, of course, I started walking through and, listening. But as soon as I walked in the banqueting house, I started to get sick. I really felt ill. And often when you're a medium and you have the ability to sense ghosts, they usually share pain of death. So I was wondering why I felt sick in the banqueting house. Long story short, Charles I, who was beheaded in 1649, thought that he had the ability to heal people. In fact, that actually got around so that during his beheading, people would actually take their handkerchiefs and dip their handkerchiefs in his blood, thinking that it could cure them of things, as gross as that is. But so when I went in there, I felt my throat go dry, and I got a sore throat, and I thought maybe the conditions in the building were bad, or maybe it was just dry in the building, but it wasn't. Ghosts were sharing their sickness. So after Charles I was beheaded, Charles II, his son, also believed that he had the ability to cure people. So what happened was the people believed in him, and they would line up outside the banqueting house and come in there where he had installed a throne, and they wanted him to lay his hands on them to heal them. So during the time of Charles II, there was a disease called scapula. Have you ever heard of that, Dave?
Yes, I have.
Well, it's includes it's a dry, sore, swollen throat, and there's more to it, but you can actually die from it. So people used to line up in the banqueting house to have him heal them. As it turned out, he really didn't have healing power, and as a result, a number of those people that were waiting to see him actually died in line, and they're still waiting in the banqueting house for Charles's cure. So, it was really odd to find, that kind of a number of ghosts who were sickly in a banqueting house, because you would think that it was a place of celebration. And normally it is, but I was able to actually confirm that entire story with the docents that worked there. They said, "Oh yeah, people would line up, very sick, to be cured by Charles II."
Well, I guess when you were desperate, and let's face it, back then, the medical care was not what it is today. And we make light of it, but I mean, we're pretty blessed with the medical care we get today. But considering back then, they would do absolutely everything. I mean, the church was everything. The church was the hospital. The church was the place to try and get healed, because everybody's faith was in God or the priest who was running the church.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I couldn't even imagine. Could not even imagine. That's just terrible. Terrible.
Well, one of the other things that was startling was the screaming queen that ran through me. That was in Hampton Court Palace.
What happened there?
It was pretty amazing. Hampton Court Palace was actually one of the most haunted places that I went to. Hampton Court Palace and the Tower of London. The Tower of London, by the way, is actually a castle. It's not a tower. So the place that I encountered the most ghosts was Hampton Court Palace. And there is a queen, one of Henry VIII's queens, of course, that he beheaded, that runs screaming down what's called the Haunted Gallery now. And, of course, when I walked in Hampton Court Palace, I didn't know anything about Hampton Court Palace. I didn't know anything about the history of it, about the ghosts or anything. So Hampton Court Palace is a really gorgeous place, and it's one to go to. It's about 40 miles southwest of London, and Henry VIII spent a lot of time there, and then William and Mary actually lived there too, and they did upgrades and so forth. So there's not that much of the Tudor period left in the palace because William and Mary did a lot of renovations. But long story short, Catherine Howard was one of Henry VIII's queens. She was very young. I think she was 14 or 15 when he married her, and she was caught being unfaithful to the king. So, of course, he did what he does, and he sentenced her to death. Well, she found out about her death sentence in Hampton Court Palace. And what I was told later is that she ran screaming down this particular hallway, begging Henry VIII for mercy and not to kill her. So I walked out of one room called the Great Watching Chamber, and I walked into this long corridor that has giant portraits hanging on it. And suddenly I sensed this woman rushing at me, this young girl, and she ran right through me, and I got chills, and I looked at my arm and I had goosebumps, and I knew that a ghost had run right through me, and I could hear her screaming in my head. I thought, "Oh my God, who in the world is that?" So I've had ghosts walk through me. Have you ever experienced that?
I have channeled. I've never had one walk through me yet. No.
Oh, well, it's quite a feeling. You get you get total chills, and the reason you get the chills is that they absorb the energy, the warmth from your body, because ghosts need the energy. So, as it turns out, people have reported seeing the figure of a woman dressed in a white gown running through that gallery. And people have also seen hands reaching out from behind curtains, and so there's been a number of people who have reported the Screaming Queen. That's Catherine Howard. So if you go to Hampton Court Palace, make sure you go into the haunted gallery, close your eyes, and see if the Screaming Queen will run right through you, because she's always active in there. She never stops. So I also mentioned the Tower of London. That was another extremely haunted place.
I can see that. What did you feel while you were in there?
Well, the Tower of London has a number of active ghosts, and I, of course, like I said, I didn't know anything about the history of it or anything, but that's where Anne Boleyn was beheaded. She was beheaded on what's called the Tower Green, outside of a church that's inside the Tower of London. It's called St. Peter ad Vincula Church. So I met Anne Boleyn's ghost unknowingly, who is lingering in the church. When I walked into this church, I sensed a female presence, and she made me feel sadness. She also made me feel anxiety and grief. And sometimes when I'm in the presence of a ghost who is extremely emotional, I can get choked up and I can actually cry. And that's exactly what happened. I was sitting in the pew listening to the docent talk about the church, and she was making me cry. I thought, okay, so I'm sitting here and everybody's looking at me, and they're probably wondering what the hell is wrong with this guy? He's sitting, he's crying by himself. When the docent's talking about the history, but it was Anne Boleyn. And she turns out the docent said right after I sensed her and I started crying a little bit that the docent said her ghost is said to appear there, and of course she was executed there. Here's an interesting factoid too, is that Henry VIII apparently really flipped out after she died, because he hated her. Although he loved her, then he turned around and he totally hated her. He had her body dug up and cut up, and then he put lime in the pit and threw her body back, and lime actually dissolves bones. That's how much he hated her. Just sick. So it's no wonder that she haunts the tower. But Dave, have you ever encountered a portal? Because that's my next really cool story from the tower.
Portals. Yes, I have. Have I seen them, like, the swirling or anything that kind of everybody says they're seeing? No. But have I seen strange things come and go, which it looks like there's a portal there? Yes. Yes, indeed.
Excellent. Well, that's what I encountered when I went into what's called the Salt Tower in part of the Tower of London. As a paranormal investigator, I've actually encountered a portal only once, and that is in the Belmont Manor, which is a historic house here in the Baltimore area, where our ghost group gives talks. And we actually were able to monitor the portal because we put a light-up ball on the floor where I sensed the portal. And the portal, as you mentioned, it looks like almost like a sideways hurricane, if you will, rotating. And when we put this light-up ball at the base of this portal, it would light up every 30 seconds. So it's like it took the energy, the strongest energy, about 30 seconds to go around and make that circle. Now, I think that portals there are a number of different uses of portals, of course. They can be used by spirit who have crossed over, or there's another type of portal that can be used for ghosts. And the reason ghosts use them is because they want to go from one place to another on Earth. They can't cross over, and they usually stay put in a place, but they use portals to go from one place to another. So, have you ever we talked about MRIs. You haven't had one.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so this now we're coming full circle, because in the first hour I mentioned how MRIs they're like really loud and they vibrate, and you can actually feel the vibration in your body. So when we walked into the Salt Tower, there was only one light in the Salt Tower, but as we opened the door, my partner was behind me. It was like we were walking through a massive vibrational area. We could feel everything vibrating, and we could actually hear a loud humming. It was really bizarre. I've never encountered that before. I've never had the humming. So, and he experienced it too as soon as we walked in. And when we closed the door, the humming stopped. Or before we closed the door, the humming stopped. And we checked around everywhere. There was nothing but stone and one light bulb in this Salt Tower. So we knew that it was not, we were able to, there was nothing to debunk because it was truly paranormal. Just freaky, though.
Let's move on with your book here, my friend, because we literally only have you for about another 8 minutes. And The Ghosts of Guildhall.
The Ghosts of Guildhall. Okay, well, Guildhall actually was a place where Lady Jane Grey found out that she was going to be executed. Again, another of Henry VIII's.
They were just executing anywhere they could at that time.
Yeah, there were a lot of executions. She was queen actually for just 9 days in 1553, and she was like the first cousin of Edward VI. She was on trial there at Guildhall, and there's a big plaque in Guildhall. It's a really beautiful, beautiful place, but it's haunting. Oh, here's the other weird thing about Guildhall, and ghosts. Ghosts can affect you in different ways. What was weird about Guildhall is I sensed that there was a lot of bad energy in there, and it was really residual energy that was impressed upon the structure. But I remember I was walking through there, and suddenly I felt something in my mouth, and one of my fillings broke when I was in Guildhall. It didn't cause me any pain, but it just fell out. And I was like, what in the world? It was not a good feeling in there. So it was not until I left Guildhall that I actually encountered an intelligent haunt. So know this. If you go to England and you visit Guildhall, there's a lot of bad energy in there. The place was built in 1411, and actually out front of it, during the Roman period, out front of Guildhall, there used to be a Roman amphitheater that was built in like 1100 AD or something like that. And it's marked on the pavement. Throughout London, you will find out that the city was built over a huge Roman settlement. So not only are there entities from Old England, but there are also Roman soldiers walking around in death and everything else. But outside of Guildhall, as we were leaving, there was a doorway, and I looked over at this doorway and I saw the figure of a man, and I nudged my partner and I said, "Do you see that guy over there?" And he looked and he's like, "Yeah, he looks kind of weird." And then we looked again and there was nobody there. I sketched him out. His knee was bent, his leg was raised, and his foot was on the wall, but he had vanished. So we knew that he was wearing a dark suit and a tall hat, by the way. So I actually sketched him out. Have you ever seen any images of what's his name? The guy that did the Powder Keg Rebellion, Guy Fawkes. Have you ever seen any sketches of Guy Fawkes?
No, I have not.
Okay. Did you ever see the movie V is for Vendetta?
No.
Okay.
You're making me sheepishly answer these questions right now.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry to put you on the spot there, but anyway, the V is for Vendetta is kind of a futuristic story. It's based on the Guy Fawkes who was tried to blow up Parliament. And he wears a tall hat and he wears black. And this is what this guy looked like. I'm not saying that the ghost was Guy Fawkes. I really don't know who it was. But when I sensed the ghost, I actually took the camera and I started taking pictures in the doorway. And sure enough, there was an orb there with a design in it. And that's in the book, as well as the sketch that I made of what this ghost looked like. So we don't know who it is, but I did find out that there was a guy named Henry Garnett who was on trial in Guildhall. So it could very well be that man who was executed there. But whoever he was, apparently that's his corner. So he decides to hang out in that corner. So when you're going into Guildhall, take a look over to the right, because there's someone standing in the doorway, and he may or may not be there for a long time. Sometimes you just don't get the identities of people.
Are there a lot of ghosts there that you encountered that are still thinking they're on the job?
Absolutely. There are quite a number of them. In the Tower of London, there was a full-bodied apparition of a soldier marching, and he was still doing his job. There were in Canterbury, I went into a restaurant, and there was a waitress in the old thatched tavern, I believe it was, and I said to my partner, I'm like, look at her, she's wearing authentic period clothing like the 1600s. I said, that's really cool. I said, I guess they do that here. And he looked over and he said, there's nobody there. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's right behind me. She was carrying a basket full of bread, loaves of bread, and she was walking over to tables. And I turned around and there was nobody there. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, well, she's apparently still working. And I sketched her out, and she's in my book too. I put her sketch in there too. So yeah, there's a lot of people walking around that are still doing the jobs that they were doing in life.
Reminds me of the Banff Hotel in Alberta, where there's a bellhop that will literally come and get your bags for you. And he'll take them up to your room. Many people have had this experience and put it on record. And when you go to tip him, he refuses the tip and usually will either disappear right around there or walk down the hallway, and something will happen where he'll just disappear into the elevator or something along those lines. I mean, there are spirits out there that just loved their careers, Rob, and never wanted it to end. Like, that was them. That was who they were, what they were proud of.
Yes, absolutely. And I actually took a walking tour of London, and I found out that there were a couple of restaurants where there were still waiters who are dead that actually take orders. And they leave the people hanging because, of course, the ghosts never put the orders in. So people still carry on with what they did in life.
My friend, we're just about to get to the thought of the Dave here. I want to give you time to tell people where they could get your books, and then you can go hit the sack, man, because I know it's like 2:45 in the morning there. Yeah,
it's and I've been up since 4:30 a.m., so it's been a long day. But it's been great. This has been awesome. So anybody can get a hold of me if they type in robgutro.com, ROBGUTRO.com, or petspirits.com. That goes to my website. I'm on Facebook and Twitter under Ghost Medium Book. Also on Pinterest and YouTube and all that, all that stuff, Dave. But yes, the books are all on Amazon. They're in paperback, and they're all under $10 in paperback, and they're in ebook too. They're less than $3.99, I think, in ebook. I made them as cheap as I can so that people want to read them and buy them and learn from them, because spirits are around us and they are trying to give us signs all the time. So take comfort in that. And again, thank you for having me on.
Anytime,
really,
buddy.
Been a great pleasure.
Been a pleasure to have you back on the show as well. Rob Gutro, once again, go to Amazon, get his book, Ghosts of England, On a Medium's Vacation. This one's a good one. I highly suggest you go pick it up, Space Travelers, because it's a lot of fun. Thought of the Dave coming up next. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where during the day I will ask you a personal question, and we will get responses from our listeners who, well, of course, will read them on air tonight. And today's Thought of the Dave is pretty simple. Nice, easy question to finish off a week. What's the most haunted location you've been to? What happened there? Now, before I get to this, a little bit of rant time here. When I ask an open-ended question like that, I don't want 2-3 second or 2-3 words. Give me an explanation. Our people want to hear this. Be chatty about it. We're going to put you on the air if it's a good story. We're going to put you on the air. Fill it out. Give us some detail. Like Graham here on Twitter. 2 full apparitions misformed ghosts dressed in 1800s attire. A man and a woman with no form below the ankles, and floating as I stood with a beer in hand at the K Road Cemetery, a colonial cemetery, with my astonished friend Michael, who looked in shock as the apparitions disappeared. That's a good one. What's the most haunted location you've been to? What happened there? Brandy, another neighbor of old Baby's, says, the Empress Hotel in Victoria, British Columbia. Left the hotel with my glasses case sitting on the bathroom vanity. Came back and the sink was full of water and my glasses were upside down in the water in the sink. My coworker woke up right beside, her bedside light was on after she had turned it off. However, I was not uncomfortable. Ghosts playing tricks, just like that. Absolutely amazing. Pat jumps in and says, the most negative location would be a beer distributor called Sunshine Beverage. Shadow figures in the room, in the rear of the showroom. My wife's hair was yanked. Pieces of metal studs were thrown at us. Scott, his friend, got the nastiest Class A EVP. A growling voice that said, F you. Years ago, the building was a mob-owned grocery chain called CHIVE. It is alleged that people were killed and dismembered in the basement's meat room. We also got a couple of other EVPs. Very, very weird. Sandra jumps in. House hunting in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Going up the stairs, I felt like I was leaning and I got dizzy at the top. Thought it was just me, but the real estate agent ran out and said, I'm sorry, I'm not going in there. And I managed to get down the stairs without falling. That was all I saw of the house. Just the stairs. Could you imagine going into a house? That's why, if I'm buying a house, one of the first questions I ask my realtor is it haunted? Sure, they'll look at you a little strange. But that's okay. That's very much okay. Very much okay. You know? I mean, wouldn't you want to know? Wouldn't you want to know if the house you were buying is haunted? I would. I know I have a haunted yard here. House isn't very haunted, even though there's some alien stuff going on every now and again. But the yard, totally haunted. Should mention, give a wave to my window. Hi, Rick, wherever you are. That's the name of the ghost in my yard. He's a good guy. Likes building things with wood in his hands. So I keep some wood in the old carport for him, just in case he wants to build something. Hasn't built me a new shed yet, though. Thank you, Goddess Michelle, at #SpacedOutRadio. My dear Dave, this is such an interesting show. You should be proud for presenting this. #SpacedOutRadio. Thank you, Goddess Michelle. You are an amazing, amazing light. Amazing light. Goddess Michelle. Follow her on Twitter at Opalum1. Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. We all know who he is. An apartment he lived in Germany, pictures got moved, the smell of garbage went down the hall, felt like we were being watched, children giggling in the cellar, and the clincher was when the knife flew across the kitchen. He was out of there. Jeff states the Bailey House in Merritt, British Columbia. One of our investigators, believe it or not, that was Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada, got choked there right before my eyes. Talk about feeling helpless. Could you imagine? Could you imagine that happening? Getting choked by a ghost? That's just not good. Yeah, Mike didn't like that. Marlene jumps in, and she states, my house. Last week, 4 little goblins pulled the blankets off my bed. I yanked them back. They giggled and did it again. I told them to get the F out of my house. Similar daily, I've tried everything, but I think I have a portal. They walk through this place all the time. Demons on the roof, demons talking and growling and threatening me in my bedroom, resident ghost who thinks he still owns the house, grumpy but harmless, sprites who move things around and hide keys, throw things off the shelf, shadow people walking by windows. Fortunately, my angels are bigger and badder than these entities are. Have you ever been touched in bed? I know that's a loaded question. I absolutely know that's a loaded question. What I'm saying is, have you ever been touched by a spirit or a ghost in bed? Maybe an alien? But in this case, let's say spirits. I'll tell you, I've had it happen once. Once. I remember I was in that, right before I got into that deep, deep REM type sleep. You know, the one we all enjoy. And all of a sudden, I felt my ankle, I think it was my left ankle, raise up like something was picking up my leg. And I remember saying, "Do you mind? Not tonight. I'm trying to sleep." And they slowly put my leg back down. Eerie. Freaks me out. I remember looking and Mrs. SOR was right beside me when that happened. But that absolutely freaked me out. I'd never had that happen before. Let's get to another one here. David states, on Charnslock House in Scotland, we filmed an episode there. Some very evil replies, and the place had a bad feeling about it. It just had a lot of evil, demonic type stuff said on our ghost box. Very unsettling. David Pills, abandoned residential school among a remote BC coastline. Stigmata, priest, poltergeist tormenting the spirits of the kids in the afterlife. Visions led me to discover a blood-pitted blade. I was attacked physically more than once. Ooh, that's just eerie. Charles said, I turn-of-the-century Victorian house I own. One of the previous second-generation owners used to see a woman in a flowing white dress walking around at night. I have seen doors open and close by themselves, and items fall down. The fellow who cuts the grass won't go in the house as he's afraid to. He has heard noises and seen things move. I like the house personally. It is my grandparents' old house. I wouldn't sell it either. Especially if it's a family heirloom. Totally, right? We'll get through a few more here. Heidi reminds us. She says, I live in an apartment in a converted Victorian asylum. Our apartment is on the ground floor, formerly a men's day room. When we first moved in, I heard a few shufflings about at night, and we had some old school desks as coffee tables, and one of the desk tops was slammed down one night. Also saw someone, as she put in brackets, out of the corner of my eye peek from behind a sofa once. I banned all talk of anything that happened and had a mental word that we weren't to be disturbed and that we were welcome to, and they were welcome to stay. Had no other problems. It actually is a lovely, peaceful feeling here, and if anyone is here, I think they'll enjoy the company. I don't know if I would move into a converted asylum. I really don't. Would you? That would be eerie. Eerie. The same building, just restructured, reconstructed. It's terrible. I don't know if I would do it. Hey, we're wrapping up another week here on Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for the love and the sharing of this show. We dedicated this week to Art Bell, the living legend, who's not so living anymore, but living on the other side. Art, you will be missed. Thank you so much for influencing so many of who do this. Fantastic, fantastic career, fantastic life for Mr. Bell, and we honor him. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Really do appreciate all of you helping out. We want to say a big thank you to Rob Gutro for joining us on Spaced Out Radio tonight, talking about ghosts in the United Kingdom. Eerie. Go get his book on Amazon. It'll be a good one. Tomorrow night on the program, Joe Roop is here with Spaced Out Saturdays. He's going to rock it out with Stanton Friedman as his guest. On Sunday, we're going to play a network replay as we're getting closer to naming our new Sunday host who's going to take over. It's going to be a lot of fun. I want to say thank you to all of you at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be listening to this show. You are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much to everybody at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, everybody watching on Periscope.tv in the chat room there. Lots of action in Spreaker tonight. Thank you for a wonderful, wonderful week. And to the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook, you guys did great tonight. Thank you. Hey, Billiam, 67, buddy. 67. That's all I got to say about that. Thank you for sharing our tweets, our posts, our show, talking about it with your friends. That's how we keep continuing to grow, because together, my friends, we own the night. I'll talk to you on Monday afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us. Don't forget, Facebook, Monday afternoon, Facebook Live. Give you the week's reading. Hop in on that. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. See you then. Bye-bye.